Emma. I'm a business major, accounting concentration. Obviously, I'm a third year. I'm from Monterey, California, and I'm the CPA licensing advisor, so I help people plan to become CPA eligible. And then I'm also involved in Mustang Consulting on campus. I work for Mustang Media Group, and yeah, that's basically
You're busy.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Hi everyone, I'm Lacey. I'm a fourth year accounting concentration from Sacramento. And currently I'm a peer advisor and I'm studying for the CPA. So thank you, Emma.
Hello, my name is Ethan. I'm a fourth year accounting major. I'm in the Bay Area. Not anymore, but I used to be involved. I used to be like committee head for PCW, better for design religion. I used to be the outreach for EPIC, which is like the Asian American branch.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so just to kick us off, we have questions for the panelists. I see some familiar faces from our finance panel on Tuesday, so you kind of know how this works, but we really welcome interaction and questions from the audience. We will follow this loosely, but please at any point, if you do have questions or you want to follow up on something, like hop in. It's way more interesting for everyone, especially our panelists, that you all ask great questions. So to kick us off, can you just share a little bit about like what is accounting 101, and then maybe what are some common myths or misconceptions about accounting? And we can go in any order.
Well, I just came off of my first accounting internship with KPMG this summer, and I definitely had a lot of misconceptions about accounting beforehand, even as someone who had like completed all the curriculum and been on accounting club board. So don't worry, like you know nothing of the concentration. I think the main thing that I was concerned with was that accounting would not be a fulfilling career path, and that I'd be kind of like locked into it for my whole life. Once I, committed to the firm in second year, which is a long time to know what you're going to do. But over the summer, I realized you have a lot of control over the kind of accounting that you do. And so what I found to be kind of the most exciting, I really like asset management, alternative asset wealth management. And so if you're working with IPOs, and you help kind of the valuation of what they think a company is worth, or if you're helping, taking a company public, you get to work one-on-one with some really cool startup companies, teach them what it means to be a business and like how to not accidentally commit fraud and all that kind of stuff. Or you can work with these local businesses, owned by smaller families, teach them the same things and just kind of help them navigate the business world, which is a really difficult thing to do. So I think you are providing very meaningful service.
I think also going off of that, I feel like the misconception for me was that I'd be stuck in accounting. If I studied it, because like you take the classes and you're like, okay, like maybe you're already taking it right now and you're like, this is super interesting, and like honestly it was the same for me. But like I like the same as Lucy. I just did an internship with EY over the summer, and basically like I was doing like audit, which was like financial students and stuff like that, which is cool. But then also they had an opportunity for me to work on blockchain stuff. So I was working with like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and we do a lot of research. And so like they were trying to figure out how to essentially implement accounting principles and accounting, like general accounting into the new field, which is like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So like being able to be on that like cutting edge of like, oh, what's new and what's going on is like, like I think the cool way to think about it is like everyone needs an accountant, and when you say everyone is like pretty much everyone, anyone you can think of at any field, any career field you can know, like whether it's tech or bio, or like anywhere you want to branch out into. And so that's like kind of my way of being like yeah, like honestly, like accounting is like it's a little difficult. The classes can be difficult, and the studying for it is like it's not as fun as like some of the higher accounting classes just be scratching your head. But doing so prepares you for what you want to be able to do.
Yeah, so I'm a little different because I'm still only a third year, so I'm starting taking like intermediate one and federal income taxation. But I also just finished up an internship with PwC, and I really like the data analytics part of accounting. That's also becoming more and more relevant to like AI and other new technologies. But I think also alongside of them, like I think I was really worried that I was just going to be sitting at a desk all day crunching numbers. And I found out there's also a big consulting side of accounting too, and so it can also be a lot more people focused, which I really like. And I think it's just a really good starting ground for a career because you can go into finance, you can go into information systems, because really accounting is like the building blocks of business, and if you can figure that out now, that's really going to help you in the future.
Okay. Some of your comments made me think of, someone that used to work here that had been in the accounting space. She was talking about the field of accounting and how like literally every single business, every single industry needs accounting, and how when like a business goes out of business, the accountant turns the lights off, like they're literally the last one there. And she was talking about how like over the, her 30-year career, she had never once experienced the impact of like a recession for the economy. And I was like, that's really like a really interesting thing about accounting, that last one in the building. Everyone else is gone. So, okay, so I know I want to highlight one other thing that you all mentioned is just like, I feel like I hear students say that accounting is really stagnant or not dynamic, or that you're working independently all the time. So do you want to speak a little bit to how the team and the client facing things work into accounting and what you'd be doing in it?
Yeah, I can start. Basically my internship last summer, we worked on like a pro bono project for a, philanthropic organization, but even my internship last summer was all team-based, and looking forward to next summer, I'm working at PwC again, and I'll be placed on another team. So I think that it's really cool how team-based accounting is. And yeah, you might be doing like individual work, but you all need to come together, to perform the audit or to like build the really like, build the 1040, whatever. But yeah, I think that's another misconception also too in my accounting classes. I have group work in every single accounting class, so it's really not individual.
Yeah, I had pretty much the same experience in my internship this summer. Like, I had to relook at my desk just to sit with my team, and we were chatting up the whole day. And like, they take you out to lunch and all of that, but then ultimately, you know that the work that you're doing is contributing to that team's work, as opposed to like, you are responsible for all of this. So it takes a lot of weight off of your shoulders. It also really creates a really welcoming environment for you as the newer team.
Yeah, I would say the distinction for me is like the difference between public and private accounting. Because public accounting for sure is way more like team-based, like you're always working with a team or a manager. And I do believe it too, like, if you go into public accounting, it's a lot easier to go into industry afterwards. Well, rather, if you go into industry first and think you want to try public, it's actually way harder because you're starting from zero. So, yeah, when we talk about team-based accounting, it's really more like, public, like, industry is more of the kind of spreadsheet. So, I mean, it's cool if you're like into that thing, then that's totally fine, but if you're looking for more of that from people side and client side, then I would recommend like public accounting for sure.
Okay, so that leads us into our next question, which is talking about some of the opportunities for accounting concentrations in the workplace, and then talking about CPA. So let's just like, what is public accounting? So I think that's something that can be helpful. Maybe you haven't had a lot of exposure to knowing like, what is the difference between public, like what is a public accounting firm versus like, what does it look like a private industry accounting position?
I guess for public accounting, the point of our services is just to provide companies with real assurance, a reasonable assurance through like obtaining evidence by looking at the financial statements that they're free of material errors from, like fraud or mistakes they could have made. And so we're really just providing companies with that assurance. And so I guess for public companies, that's on a really large scale, but then for private companies, those tend to be a little bit smaller. So I guess I've only had public accounting experience. You want to talk more about industry and services that you can later?
Yeah, so like the industry stuff is like for example, like the company that I work for is a drone making company, and so like a lot of it, the accounting process that we do there is like just making sure like ordering parts and then also like working process stuff, and so making sure that things are getting delivered on time. And so that's like the private accounting side is like making sure the company itself is functioning, and then the public side is more like making sure that they're being truthful about how they're reporting. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think too, it's like the public side, you're providing services, so they're your clients, but you don't work for that company per se, whereas private, you are accounting for that business, like you usually have a bigger stake in that business. And there's probably more opportunities to move up and reach more like management roles in private accounting. So that's also.
In public, I did talk to a lot of seniors and basically I've heard that like, it's a pretty expedited path. Once you're an A1, like a staff one and you're first recruited, next year you're A2. The next year, if you don't mess a bunch of things up and yeah, like if you basically do your job, you'll get promoted to senior. So then, once you have that in your CPA, like you're at a really prime position to get a ton of accounting experience, which either puts you in a good position to be promoted to manager or get recruited by just a ton of other companies. So I think that if you go into accounting, you're just gonna have a lot of options. You kind of stick it out for a couple years.
So we can dive back into that. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about those buckets, then feel free to ask questions. So those are kind of important distinctions for you all to know. I would say, what do you think, like 90% of our accounting students go into public accounting firms? Yeah, the majority. Yeah, the far majority, okay? So in public accounting, so that's really, and that I think industry-wide is kind of seen as like the most, it's good to kind of get that experience. When you work for a public accounting firm, you might be working with a variety of different industries, right? So you might be on a team that's supporting tech, and you might be on a team that's supporting like entertainment and media, for example. And that's really where a lot of people build their networking connections to then leverage into industry when they're ready. So in public accounting, though, there are 3 kind of buckets, and these are the position titles that you'll see when you're recruiting for jobs and internships. Two of which are directly related to accounting, but you all want to take a stab at the tax audit advisory kind of things that you'll see when you're recruiting for accounting positions.
I could do audit, since
Yeah.
that's what I did. So we kind of went over it as like essentially looking at the company as a whole and making sure that you understand the company and how it functions, and then also from there understanding like, oh, are they being truthful? Like you're doing a lot of tests actually. So you're like testing, are they being truthful about how much they're worth, how much they need this year? And I went into audit specifically rather than tax, just because it leads better, in my opinion, like into if you want to go into like control or like C-suite kind of thing, because you're learning the business as a whole. And so tax is great, because you can make a load of money in tax, whatever. Or whatever, like saving companies money, right? You can make a lot of money, but if you want to learn how to actually run the business itself, then audit is usually better for that, because you're learning, oh, how does this function of the business work? How does that one work? You know, so like you gain an overview of the company as a whole rather than tax, where you're kind of just following this, you know.
So while I haven't been a tax accountant or intern myself, I've heard that you should go or check out tax if you maybe have an interest in law, like got a law minor, or if that's one of your other interests that you're kind of deciding between. I've heard it's really creative because you're just helping companies kind of find loopholes, like how to save themselves money and obviously not commit fraud. And so I do say that I will say that there are fewer exit opportunities in terms of like if you want to maybe go into finance in the future or something like that. Like if you start out in tax, you're probably more likely to stay in tax, while audit does kind of open a few more doors down the road. But like it just depends on what you want. There's no one right or wrong way to go.
Yeah, I think I'm doing tax next summer. I don't know if I'll do tax forever, but my reason behind that was that I'm really into law and I really like there's a lot of research associated with tax because there's no one situation that's exactly like the other. So you know you have to like research different rules, etc. In order to find, you know, how you can file the taxes for your company. But also there's a ton of different opportunities within tax, and it is more compared to audit, there's more consulting opportunities within tax that I found at PwC specifically. But next summer I'm interning in New York City with like the more high net worth tax people. So I thought that would be really interesting and a good place to start. So
any questions about audit versus tax? No. What about the CPA? What's the CPA? What does CPA even stand for? Tell us, Emma. Tell us everything you know.
okay. So CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. And as we kind of touched on, once you get up to a certain level within public accounting, it's kind of expected that you get your CPA. That's like the licensure to say you're a certified public accountant. But basically there's different requirements that you have to fulfill within your schooling to qualify to take the CPA exams. So that's like those 225 units and those different educational requirements that you may or may not have heard about. So that is something that you have to consider if you want to go into.
Most companies do give you a very nice bonus if you finish your CPA within 1 year, and a slightly less nice bonus if you finish it within 2 years. But they really, really incentivize you to take it because it just like increases the value of your services so much more. Definitely a lot more exit opportunities and just increases your salary overall. So it's definitely worthwhile to pursue.
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of daunting. Like I gotta start thinking about studying it for sure. And
Yeah.
it's like, dang man, there's a lot of late nights when you first start the CPA, but it's definitely good.
Yeah, another good thing about public accounting is they'll pay for your CPA test materials and your testing fees a lot of times, so that can be like upwards of thousands of dollars, so that's a really also good benefit of starting public accounting.
I pay like $100. That was like schedule it, but like they cover it.
Okay. So we had enough industry talk to talk about classes. Yeah, everyone's like, yes, too much information. Okay, so let's talk about, well, before we dive into classes, like, how did you, hearing all of this, how did you know that accounting was the right fit for you? Was there a certain like set of skills that you need to be using, or was there something about the industry, like what helped you make the decision? And then were there things that you got involved in that assisted with that process as well?
Well, I guess I'll start off. So I really loved math or STEM in general, like calculus. No. But like I liked writing, but not enough to actually pursue it. I liked math, but again, it's not calculus. That's just kind of how my brain worked. I like when things balance. And so I was like, I might think about accounting. I might think about finance, that kind of thing. So I was asking around. I have some family members in finance, and they told me like we should have gone into accounting. Okay, noted. So like first few weeks of, oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're currently finance like wealth management advisors, so it's like nothing for them to say. But they just said that they wish they had more doors open to them down the road, and that the account, like the connections you make in your first couple of years at a public accounting firm are unrivaled. So just like it's not gonna hurt you if you don't, but they just like think that they would have really benefited starting off in accounting. Then I really liked my Biz 214 class. That really just like picked in my brain with my professor. And then CPAC, I was complete nerd. Like this was my freshman year, so it was virtual for me. So like during the meetings, I would be like, oh, let me get this person's LinkedIn information. I'm gonna reach out. And then sometimes we'd have a coffee chat or something, and I would ask them probably the dumbest questions. Just like, what is accounting? And they're paid to talk to you. Like they need you. They get paid based on how many people come to their firm. They're going to answer your dumb questions. So like, it doesn't take that much time. Go get a free coffee. And then figure out like first year if accounting's right for you. Second year you can kind of narrow it down more. But just being willing to like ask any and all questions.
Yeah, I think for me, it was partially just because the classes made sense to me, like once I started doing the work. I was like, because I was already kind of thinking about it, but I was debating between marketing and accounting. And I was like, well, like accounting, like the way that the numbers work and the logic are all behind, like the way of thinking, I guess that goes behind accounting made sense and accounting. And then also like a big part of it too was like, I'm super blessed to be able to say that like next year, like I'm going to be back to you at full time. And like, that's a huge, it's not uncommon to see that actually pretty, like, that's like, I feel like it's more often not than norm. And so like to be able to go into senior year and like not have to worry, what am I going to do post grad? Well, like, like my friends that are like doing like marketing or like finance, they're like scrambling for like internships still. And so like being able to have like that kind of security was definitely.
Yeah, I can kind of piggybacking on that. I didn't necessarily like love 214 and 215. I wasn't like, oh, this is the most interesting, best thing ever, but it kind of came more naturally to me than my peers. And I was like, okay, I can get behind this, I can do this. And then I started talking to other people like that are older, through like other clubs and organizations I'm in, and kind of heard about, how they have these great internships that segued into internships the following year and full-time positions. And I liked that there was like a really clear path, and also the job placement is like insane for the college business for accounting. Like literally everyone has a job going into their senior year, or
You want one, you got one.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why.
So I know like this is a good time to talk to you about work values, right? So everyone in this room has different values and things that are more important to them versus others. And I tend to find that, and this is not as a stereotype because of course everyone is unique, but like students in accounting really value the like clarity in path. And that doesn't end once you get hired. Hi, that doesn't end once you get hired. So once you are, like, once you start a public accounting firm, there are very clear and defined paths for promotion. And that's just like something that I think the industry is really good at. And like, you know, this is where you recruit, this is when you recruit. Once you get that, you go to a summer leadership program or you get your internship, you get your return offer, and there's like a lot of stability in that process. Yeah. Okay. Love it. Should we talk about classes? Yeah, okay, so share maybe a class that particularly stands out, or if you want to talk about senior project, if you have done it. Any projects that you felt like are notable that you want to talk about?
The intermediate accounting classes are probably the ones that stick out for me, just because they kind of just set you up really well in terms of like, especially if you want to do good. They're pretty challenging, but it's definitely doable. I think that's a really good for sure. For me, I knew what I wanted to do audit because I took the tax classes or the tax federal income tax for individuals, like not for me, but it's the law part of it just didn't make sense. They like more of the numbers guy, so that's more like the intermediate accounting classes are more like financial accounting. So
I also really did like the intermediate, so like intermediate accounting 3. Professor Lee Dong is just amazing. And so like, I don't know if enjoyment is the word, but like that is how my brain works. So I already touched on those, but I guess audit, literally that stuff is on CPA, like you'll be fine. You take that. That's what I'm studying right now. But my senior project, I did LITC, Business 463. That's the lower income taxpayer clinic. And basically you get assigned, like as a student, a low income taxpayer within the local region, who has a dispute with the IRS, and then your lady's kind of like, oh, go help them fix it. And you're like, huh? But they also help you train it, answer all of your questions. So it is very much learn by doing, see what taxes are. Like I have no clue for that. And so if you're thinking about tax at all, if you just kind of want like a wholesome experience, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, so somebody to get the on the wait list early, yeah, like your second year.
Yeah, that's when I reached out. So
Okay.
it's a very small class for Porter just because it's like limited resources. Because there's only like 3 leads and then 1 professional, like a professor in charge of the class. And so if you're interested in this, if you're a second year or even a third year, and you want to take it during your 4th year, just reach out to Professor Sparrow. Don't have to worry about it. But just saying like, I want to be class. So yeah, just have that on your radar. Yeah.
So there are any second years, and then I know for transfers too, it's like you're on an accelerated timeline, and so if you are a transfer and you're interested in doing LITC, which is again a great resume builder to get some hands-on experience right away, definitely reach out. I would just Google LITC Cal Poly, and you'll probably find all the information that you need about getting on that list.
Yeah, so I'm in Biz 320 and Biz 321 right now, and what I've noticed is that the classes or the professors, especially in the like concentration classes, they have a ton of experience in industry and they're like very passionate about accounting. So that's what I really like. So it's like it's not like the professor, you know, just did school and is teaching you accounting. They often have like 10+ years in industry, so you can really go to them for advice. Also on all this stuff too. So that's what I've noticed so far in the classes.
Yeah, I feel like y'all need to come in with some questions. What do we have questions about with classes? Something a little more relevant to what you all are thinking about now. Yeah.
Is there like, do you take any of like these like, because I don't really know like at all what concentration I would use. Do you take like somewhat concentrated classes in like your first 2 years and before you have to then do it? Like, is there an accounting class in your first years that you take?
Yes, yeah, you have a lot of the basic classes in your first and second. There's like basic financial and managerial accounting, basic marketing, basic information systems, finance. So you do get to kind of like dip your toes in the water for a lot of the concentration. Also plug if you're hitting your second year and you kind of know a concentration, but are playing around with like, what my schedule look like? Schedule with your advising appointment, and we can literally make that schedule for you to talk about any questions you might have. And the career peer advising for any like what kind of job opportunities are in here? What should I do to get a resume? Or I mean, like an interview for an internship, that kind of thing. There's a ton of resources. Don't have to decide now, but the curriculum definitely helps decide.
Do you feel like the 214 and 215 financial and managerial accounting are good indicators if you might enjoy accounting or not? Because I know some intro classes are not necessarily good representation of industry. And the one I took is marketing. I can tell students say all the time that the intro marketing class is not necessarily what it looks like to be in marketing. How do you feel about the managerial and financial accounting?
Like, it's pretty much.
I think so too, yeah. So when if you take those and you're like, oh yeah, and you know, a number of you mentioned that, like, oh, it clicked in my brain, I felt like it made sense, I really feel like I'm really satisfying, like when everything balances out. So if you find that you're naturally just engaged in the content and you're enjoying it, that might be a good clue, like, oh, I could actually really enjoy it. Yeah. Were there any electives that y'all took? I know electives are sometimes the ones that like, oh, take this one, not this one. Like, what's the insider scoop on the electives? Any?
Yeah, I mean, I took Biz 323, which is intermediate accounting 3. It's literally the same stuff, but continuation of 322, 321. So if you're liking those intermediates, definitely follow up. If you think you're gonna go into audit, I think 323 is a great option. Taxation of corporations and partnerships, I think that's probably the most brutal class that is offered in the accounting concentration. If you're going into tax, take the class. I think it's also what's on the CPA, so like you can't mess up. You're not doing the wrong thing by taking the class, but like that is a very hard one. Just know what you're getting into, Professor Mock. I haven't seen anything about this 474, but I think that's going to be relevant in sort of the semester transition and advanced material. If you like 215, awesome. This stuff won't be as much on the CPA, but if you're going to go into more like managerial industry accounting, I think that'd be a good option too.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd say to some like people I advise, if you wanted to, if you're going into tax, like definitely taxation of corporations and partnerships is really valuable because it's taught by one of the heads of the Masters in Taxation program, which is like a world-renowned program that we have here at Cal Poly. So especially if you're interested in getting your master's in tax, like definitely take that.
Yeah. Maybe hit up on it. I guess outside of the accounting electives, like because you're trying to get CPA and you need 25 credits, you just kind of have your classes. So like it's opened the way for you to take like tractor driving, more arrangement. I've taken bowling, guitar class, but yeah. There's a lot of fun classes that you can just kind of take to school that yeah, you know, but I would recommend it.
I feel like you were kind of interested. Do all of you have minors? No, okay.
I did like half a minor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
I thought about an econ minor and I couldn't take the econ, microeconomics.
No.
Yeah, I've taken a few classes for the law and society minor, but I don't know if I'm gonna declare that or not, or if I know, yeah.
I kind of nice to have the freedom to not have an official minor and you gotta just take what you want.
Yeah, so although I will say my half a minor was in German and I did actually, and then I brought that up and talked a lot about it during my interviews. And I actually think that really did help me out because like I was minoring in German, like that's so random. So they would ask me like, why are you doing that? Then I give my whole spiel. And that combined with like my leadership experience did actually help me to get this really cool opportunity through KPMG called the Global Advantage Program. They literally took me to Denmark over the summer and I got to attend some leadership conferences, which is really sick. So if you kind of have like something that you're interested, that's maybe a little bit random, but that can probably apply to business, or you can make it seem apply to business when you're in an interview, I say pursue that, take a few classes, say you're minoring in it for the interview, that'd be cool. But like, yeah, I think that did help give me a little bit of an edge.
You do that after your second year? I talked to so many students who want to intern abroad and like get experience going abroad over the summer. Okay, what questions do y'all have? What would help you decide, like, what's your missing piece? Yeah.
So when you talk about the beginning with 225 units, like what classes are you adding on? Are you like any classes in the number or are they like specific? Yeah, so this is what I advise people about a lot, but so there's certain educational requirements that you have to fulfill. So there's like accounting subjects and business subjects that you'll fulfill at Cal Poly. And then there's like ethics requirements as well as like other business accounting related subjects. It gets kind of really nitty gritty, but you are gonna have some additional units more than likely that you have to take, and those can be in any like higher ed. There's any class that you can get higher ed for.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then for those of you that either have done your grad plan or you will be doing a grad plan, if you're currently enrolled in Biz 100, you'll see like you'll need 180 units to graduate. So you have to be really strategic to get to that 225 number. So the earlier that you think about that, the better. If you're pretty confident in accounting, definitely reach out to Emma and be strategic with it. Is that another question?
Are you guys doing all of them at Cal Poly, or are you like using community colleges to get to the requirements?
I'm actually taking like a intro to financial accounting class at Yale College, which is really good. That's what a lot of people do, because there is like a weird requirement for CPA where you need like 9 accounting units. It's super weird. And so like because like other people in class for 5 units, plus it's a lab, which is better just to get it out go. And there's 5 units ready, so and it's also like it's so great, it's so amazing. So I really like it.
Yeah, I took that one in the summer before, I did the intermediates policy reviews. All of my financial accounting, like completely forgot it after a year, so that's a really good one, if you're just like. You don't think accounting, but again, I'm not sure, so that's a good review. I did another accounting class at Foothill and one of my GEs, they have that extra unit, but otherwise, like, I've been in 12 units since like end of sophomore year, so I kind of front loaded first and like started second year. So it's not like that insane if you're just kind of strategic with it, maybe do a couple summer classes, but like, it's not as crazy as you guys think.
Yeah, I took summer classes at Foothill this last summer. That was also just to finish up some more GEs, as you said, but also another option is that you don't have to be involved in undergrad. You can also like get a master's in accounting or a master's in taxation. So that's usually an additional 45 units. So it really depends on like your educational path, what you want to do, what you have the resources for.
We have a chat question. What was the class that you just named about at Foothill?
Pull it up, but it's just like the financial accounting like 101.
Okay.
Also kind of just like.
And if you're a transfer, it's a lot easier typically to get those 225 because you're coming in usually with grad. Another question, yeah.
So I came a little bit late, so I don't know, that's why I'm going, but I were on the first lab, a little bit on this one, on the bus, on the 4th week too. You guys could speak on any, like knowledge on accounting for government and what that stuff might have preparing that, in public in the time.
I haven't seen that one offered in a long time, to be honest with you. There is a not-for-profit accounting class at Foothill, but I don't have any experience there.
Yeah, I know people from Cal Poly have gone like, have worked for the FBI, have worked for different companies. So like that's definitely another like, I wouldn't say as common at Cal Poly, but another path you can go into. But you might just have to like network with those people or get that education.
Yeah, I feel like we're all thinking probably the same alumni, that now is literally a special agent at the FBI. But there is kind of this wing of accounting called forensic accounting, where you're like investigating fraud, or you are like, you think about there, I mean, there's just obviously every governmental agency and organization has its own budget and, you know, like that all requires accounting. And so there are tons of opportunities. You'll find that ranging all the way from like local city accountant positions all the way through to like national programs. One thing that's nice, I know some students, for whatever reason, like life happens, if your GPA is not at the cutoff that you'll find for a lot of accounting internships, number one, feel free, you can always come and chat with me and you can be strategic around just getting connected to recruiters. A lot of times they just want to know why. If your GPA isn't right at that mark, is it at 3.0 now? Is it, what are most of them, 3.0? 3.3, okay. Yeah, okay. So, but for some students, like if you're like, hey, I just had a rough couple of years, I really struggled, then there are a ton of like government options that usually have more immediate requirements around GPA too. So that can be a great option for students. Or if you know, like some students want to go back and live back home, and home is a small town where there's not like a ton of companies or an office of a public accounting firm. And so that is the nice thing about accounting is there are like people want to stay and live in Flow. There's not a ton of job opportunities. There are a ton of accountants that live in Flow, right? Because there's needs everywhere. Yeah. And same for nonprofits. I know a lot of students like want to use their business degree to create impact or change. And so there are lots of business functions in nonprofits as well. And it just functions a little bit differently because you're not dealing with like revenue and you're dealing more mostly with like grants and donations and things like that. Yeah. Okay. Companies that hire students, we talked about this, I feel like pretty extensively. The majority of our students go into public accounting firms. And those range in sizes from like the big four, which are EY, PwC, Deloitte, and KPMG. You'll see them on campus often, all the way down to much, much smaller, like local firms. There's smaller public accounting firms in every city. Okay, we talked about tax audit. Anything else? I feel like this number is higher now. Yeah, is it closer to 80? Yeah,
It's on the office.
yeah. We don't get our like our salary data until like 9 months later. So this has definitely grown dramatically. In the last 5 years, I feel like it was closer to 62 or something, and now it's 80, 85. It ranges.
Yeah.
I think it depends entirely on the office though, it's like EY, like. I knew someone that was at the Portland office, I got an office for like 65, and an SF, which is like.
Yeah.
The highest paid was at. Kind of, but, yeah. If it's at all possible, I would definitely say like either go in LA,
Okay, and I always want to save time at the end for you all to chat individually with any of the panelists too. So let's talk a little bit about the Cal Poly Accounting Club, or what you probably refer to as CPAC all the time. This is, I think one thing that's helpful from this panel is to know like, hey, I'm interested and I'm curious to learn more. What do I do now? Right? I've learned a little bit more about accounting. Where do I go next? So Lucy, I know you've been very involved with CPAC. Do you want to share a little bit about the club and how it can help students explore their concentration and then get job internship?
Yeah, basically how CPAC works is that like firms give them so much money. They have the biggest budget of any club in school. It's kind of obscene. Basically firms pay them to come and speak to you guys and tell you about accounting. And so basically if you show up to any weekly club, there's gonna be a different firm talking on any subject, like what is tax? Like, how do I get it? Or like, what is a summer leadership program? Like all these questions. And so if you have this kind of like basic questions, or just like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this kind of firm and they're presenting, definitely just show up, get your free lunch, sit next to people and start talking. Like this is an awesome way to meet people within the concentration who are also trying to like learn more and get really involved. But yeah, like you really can't go wrong if you go to the meetings. They're the ones who host all the career fairs, and just are the primary place where all of the recruiters go to get in contact with all of you, because you are very much like cream of the crop. Like they want Cal Poly students.
Much more demand than supply.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we didn't chat about this much. How many of you are like 80% confident or more in accounting? You're like, I'm pretty sure this is my concentration. Okay, nice. Yay, welcome to accounting. Okay, how many of you are still choosing between two? Okay, accounting and what else? That's always the one. Yeah, what, any other accounting or finance? Yeah. You should look into how many CFOs have finance backgrounds versus accounting backgrounds, just depending on where you want to go.
Okay, oh yeah, one thing to speak on the whole finance versus accounting concentration, as someone who's seen a lot of curriculum and like talked to people who have been in all of those classes. I've heard that finance curriculum does not really relate at all to an actual finance job. Just fine if you want to go into finance, but just know that like if you're pursuing accounting or kind of any job and you're like, I do want to be really ready day one, like I want to learn stuff that's going to really be applicable. That is the accounting curriculum. Emma was saying like our professors have all the industry knowledge and experience teaching you stuff right on the CPA, and that you'll be doing day to day in the office for a solid chunk of it. But like that's just one primary difference that I've heard.
You will, I would say like if you decide finance is the right, if that's what you really want to do, then you should go for it, but you will have to work way harder at recruiting. And that's just the reality. There's not one is not better than the other. It's what fits best for you and what you most enjoy and you're engaged with. But Yeah, it's a much harder and much more competitive recruiting process because there's just fewer entry level finance roles. And that's just kind of the reality. There's not the need for the same level of like junior analysts as there are for audit associates. So there's just more of a pipeline into accounting, which is why I think so many finance professionals start from there, is because there's really clear pipelines. Yeah. So, oh yeah,
We have a few chat questions.
Yes,
So the
okay.
first one is for second years ready to establish accounting as their concentration, what would they recommend as the next few steps after that?
Oh, great. If you're gonna declare your concentration, you have to reach out to the professor committee, meet with him, he'll just tell you what the GPA is, and like, cool, and then you sign the form and you're done. But yeah, if you're ready, again, CPAC, get involved. Like, the steps are pretty clear once you. Yeah.
And the next one is I don't know who they were referring to, but they said, how was one of the panelists able to secure an internship at one of the big four? Any advice for that?
That's about Boston Podium.
Okay, yeah, I guess from my experience was like, when I came back second year, when we were actually in Johnson. I knew I was like, okay, I want an internship, I gotta figure this out, so like I started going to CPAC meetings. I just had no idea what was going on, I didn't show up, I just kind of showed up to the fall symposium. I was like, what the heck is going on, like, with all these birds, I was so nervous, I'm not even gonna lie, I was like trying to talk to these people, I started off with like a small, like, agricultural, like, accounting firm, because like, there's no way I'd find out anyway, so I'm gonna have to just get it out of it. So I started with them and I figured out, okay, like this is what recruiting is. I had no idea what it was either. I was like, I don't even know. Like I didn't even have my elevator pitch at the time either. So yeah, we're trying to figure all this out. But then I got super fortunate that I met a lot of people that I kind of had like mutual connections with, and like also just chatting with different people. And so that's how I kind of got plugged into like, oh, these firms are like having these events that you can come out to. You should definitely, if you're interested in firms, like definitely go out to those like events. Figure out how to get in contact with like a recruiter or like make some kind of connection. And then from there, it's honestly not that hard. I think the biggest thing is like once you start applying and you're doing interviews, the biggest piece of advice is like kind of give is like all the things that you're doing like for the first 2 years up until you start interviewing a client is like you're trying to gather like experiences, because they're gonna ask you questions of like, oh, how did you react in like this kind of situation, or like when did something go wrong, what did you learn? And so like the more things that you can kind of pull from, the more stories that you have to share, the easier it is gonna be for them to kind of be like, okay, we want to hire this person. So like they might be like, oh, what's the time like you had a dispute with a coworker, like someone asked me that. Shoot, like I get along with my coworkers all the time, but like there was this one time, and then you know, like it's that kind of thing. Like you just find all these different stories. Yeah.
I got one more. The last one is when should we start looking to add the additional credits if we are interested in working towards a CPA, like our first or second year?
Yeah, I can touch on that. I think that the best time is probably your second year, because you know, first year, you're probably not sure that you're gonna probably be a CPA, and I think second year is pretty, reasonable, you know, to start like thinking like, if you're on track to maybe graduate 12 unit quarters and then start taking 16 unit quarters, whatever. I think that where I see people have problems is if they wait until like their fourth year, like middle of their third year to add the extra credits, and then it might be like a little too late at some point, not maximum after graduation, but really up to you just when you decide to.
yes.
How important is it to get like a master's?
It depends. If you're going into tax, I'd say it's more important and it'll help accelerate your path as a manager, but for audit, it does not matter as much.
I feel like it's a little, it is good, it's definitely a worthy investment, but if you're going into public accounting, they still start you off. You know, when you do a master's degree, but like, it kind of depends on what you want to do. Having that master's pays off later, but in the short run, people kind of like, I will start off right away.
Okay, so really quick, if you are interested in recruiting, so a lot of times if you came in as a first year freshman and you're in your second year now, summer leadership programs, are all firms still doing those as much as they used to? Yeah, I feel like they're not. Okay, so Fall Symposium is this Friday from 10 until 1. It's up in Chumash Auditorium. Even if you don't feel entirely ready, it's a great way to just get some exposure to who's recruiting accounting students, what types of opportunities are available. You may meet some recruiters. And then there's also Careers in Accounting Day in the winter, which is another opportunity to recruit if you miss this cycle, or if you're a second year. But you'll find that recruiting for internship starts in the fall, and the place to get those for the student asking about recruiting is at Fall Symposium,
Yeah.
which is happening this week.
Also to touch on that, like I know for
Yeah.
PWC tomorrow, like I'll be at the fall symposium table, so we have a ton of, we call them like campus ambassadors, but just people at Cal Poly who have had an internship or are gonna start full time at PWC. So it is that is like pretty low stakes, because you know, you can just talk to another student, get more experience, maybe network a little. It's not like, oh, I wanna apply to this internship, et cetera. You don't have to have your elevator pitch.
Students that have really a successful time recruiting, it's like they show up their first year, just say hi to their recruiters, they show up the second year, the recruiter sees them again, they show up their third year, and they're like, I've been seeing you for, you know, this is now the third year, like, let's get you an interview, right? Like, so that, I think that networking piece is hugely valued in public accounting. Yeah, so I'll be there from 12 to 1. So if you want like a recruiter intro or anything, there's so many people that are there that really want to support you all and meet you all, so. At least provide things to Emma. All right. Well, we're officially out of time. I want to give a huge shout out to our panelists. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We will follow up with all of you that signed in. So if you didn't sign in, I'll just leave this up here as you're exiting. And if you have a couple of minutes, if you have individual questions, then feel free to come up and reach out. And then we will, I can't remember what's happening next week, but I'll email you all with our next week's consultation panel. All right, thank you. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And that's we have a recording. And we get your.
Basically, it's gonna be like a few of us who are gonna learn, it's like a few slides, you kind of thing. What is not technical, thing, how to apply, next.